I surrender. I surrender every plan I tried to force. I surrender every timeline I tried to control. I surrender every outcome I tried to manufacture with my own hands, my own mind, my own will. I lay it all down. I release it all now. I let go of the version of my life I thought I needed, and I open myself fully to the version God has already written. Because I know now, deeper than I have ever known before, that God's plan for my life is greater than my fear, greater than my doubt, greater than my confusion, greater than every mistake I have made, every door that closed, every dream that seemed to die. God's plan is greater, and I choose today to trust it completely. I have spent too long letting fear lead. I have spent too many mornings waking up with anxiety wrapped around my chest like a weight I could not name. I have spent too many nights lying awake, running through every worst-case scenario, every possibility of failure, every version of the future where things go wrong. And I declare today, that season is over. I am no longer led by fear. I am no longer governed by anxiety. I am no longer making decisions from a place of panic or scarcity or dread. I now move from a place of trust. I now live from a place of surrender. I now walk in the knowledge that the one who created me has already gone before me and prepared the way. I do not need to figure it all out. I only need to follow. God's plan for my life did not begin when I was born. It was written before I took my first breath, before my name was spoken into this world, before my eyes opened to the light, before I knew what a dream was or what a purpose felt like. God had already mapped out the fullness of my journey. Every chapter, every turn, every moment of beauty, and every season of growth, every valley I would walk through, and every mountain I would stand upon. He saw it all. He knew it all. He wrote it all. And what God writes cannot be erased. What God ordains cannot be undone. What God plans cannot be canceled by any human force, any circumstance, any enemy, or any fear inside of me. I declare this today with my whole heart. The plan over my life is not mine to carry. It is mine to trust. It is mine to walk out in faith, one step at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time. I do not need to see the entire staircase. I only need to take the next step. I do not need to understand the entire journey. I only need to say yes to today. I do not need to know every detail of what is coming. I only need to believe that the one who holds the details is faithful, is good, and is always working in my favor. I have feared so many things. I have feared failure. I have feared rejection. I have feared being misunderstood. I have feared making the wrong choice. I have feared being left behind, left out, left alone. I have feared that my dreams were too big. I have feared that I was too small. I have feared that the gap between where I stand and where I long to be is too wide to ever cross. And today, I look at every one of those fears and I speak this truth directly to them. You are not bigger than God. You are not stronger than the plan. You are not louder than the voice that called me by name and said you are chosen, you are purposed, you are mine. Fear, you do not get to lead me anymore. You do not get to make my decisions. You do not get to shrink my life, or dim my light, or convince me that the plan has changed. The plan has not changed. The plan has never changed. It is still unfolding. It is still on schedule. It is still moving toward the fullness of everything God promised. I now release the fear of not being enough. For too long, I have questioned whether I had what it takes. I have looked at others and felt small. I have looked at my own past and felt disqualified. I have heard the whispers that said, "Who do you think you are? What makes you believe you were made for something great? What right do you have to step into that calling?" And I now silence every one of those whispers. They are not the voice of God. They are the voice of fear. And fear is not my authority. God is my authority. And God said, "Before I formed you, I knew you." God said, "I have plans for you, plans for good and not for harm, plans to give you a future and a hope." God said, "You did not choose me, I chose you." And I now stand in that choosing. I stand in that knowing. I stand in the truth that I was not assembled by accident. I was not placed on this earth without intention. I was created on purpose, for a purpose, and that purpose is still alive in me. I surrender the need to understand everything. This has been one of my greatest struggles. I have needed to know why. I have needed to understand the reason for the detour, the reason for the delay, the reason for the closed door, the reason for the season of waiting. I have sat in confusion and demanded answers from heaven, demanding a map, demanding a timeline, demanding an explanation. And today I release that demand. I lay down the need to understand, and I pick up trust. Because trust does not require understanding. Faith does not wait for an explanation. I do not need to know why the path took this turn. I only need to know that the one leading me on this path makes no mistakes. I only need to know that every twist and every turn is working together for my good. I only need to know that what I call a detour, God calls preparation. What I call a delay, God calls alignment. What I call confusion, God calls a holy rerouting towards something better than I could have asked for or imagined. There have been doors I wanted to open so badly. I pushed on them. I knocked on them. I sat outside them and prayed and cried and believed and waited, and they did not open. And I took that closed door as a sign that I was not worthy, not ready, not chosen, not enough. But today I see the truth about those closed doors. They were not a rejection, they were a redirection. They were not God saying no to me. They were God saying not that way, not yet, not this one, because I have something better, something truer, something more aligned with the greatness I placed inside of you. Every closed door was an act of divine protection. Every no was a holy steering away from something that was not mine. Every ending was a clearing of space for the beginning that God was preparing. I now bless every closed door. I bless every no I ever received. I bless every loss that made room for what was truly mine. Because now I understand that God's protection often looks like disappointment to human eyes. God's redirection often feels like failure to a fearful heart. But to the eyes of faith, every closed door was a gift. Every detour was mercy. Every delay was divine timing. I release the fear of my past. I have carried mistakes like stones in my pockets. I have replayed failures on a loop inside my mind, reminding myself of every time I fell short, every time I chose wrong, every time I hurt someone, or wasted something, or missed an opportunity. And I have let those replays write a story over my life that says, you are disqualified. You had your chance, and you missed it. The plan was for someone else now. The blessing has moved on. And I stand here today, and I declare that story is a lie. My past does not cancel my purpose. My failures do not disqualify my calling. My mistakes do not move God to take back what He already placed inside of me. Because God's gifts and God's calling are without repentance. They are not revoked because I stumbled. They are not withdrawn because I went through a wilderness season. They are not canceled because fear got loud, and I listened for a while. The plan is still intact. The purpose is still alive. The calling is still mine. And I now step back into it without shame, without apology, without the weight of what was. I step forward into what is and what is to come. I now speak to every version of fear that has ever told me to play it small. The fear that said, don't try because you might fail. The fear that said, don't speak because they might not listen. The fear that said, don't dream because you will only be disappointed. The fear that said, don't step out because the ground beneath you might not hold. I speak to all of it now and I declare, I was not created for smallness. I was not wired for shrinking. I was not fashioned in secret and called by name so that I could spend my life hiding from the very thing I was made to do. I was created for impact. I was created for purpose. I was created to carry something into the world that only I can carry in the way that I carry it. My voice matters. My gift matters. My presence on this earth is not an accident or an afterthought. It is intentional. It is necessary. It is part of a plan, so much greater than anything fear has ever shown me. God's plan does not require me to be perfect. This truth I have needed to hear for so long. I have waited for the right moment to step out. I have waited until I felt ready, until I felt qualified, until the fear was gone and the confidence was full and the path was clear, and I kept waiting, and the moment kept not coming. Because the truth is, the perfect moment is not coming before the step. The clarity comes after the step. The confidence builds through the stepping. The readiness is not a prerequisite. It is a result. God does not call the qualified. God qualifies the called. And I am called. I was called before I understood what calling meant. I was chosen before I knew how to walk in that choosing. And I now step forward not because I am ready but because I am willing. Not because I have it all figured out but because I trust the one who does. I step forward in imperfect faith with imperfect strength, with an imperfect past, and I trust that the God who planted this purpose inside of me will complete what he began. I surrender the fear of what other people think. This fear has been a cage. I have made decisions based on what would be acceptable, what would be understood, what would not raise too many eyebrows, or invite too many questions. I have shrunk myself to fit inside the expectations of others. I have dimmed my light to keep others comfortable. I have walked away from divine assignments because I was afraid of judgment, afraid of being misread, afraid of standing out in a way that made people uncomfortable. And today I lay down that cage. I step out of that shrinking. I declare that I was not created to live for the approval of people. I was created to walk in the approval of God. And God has already approved me. God has already called me. God has already covered me. And when God is for me, it does not matter who stands against me, or who misunderstands me, or who questions the path I am on. I walk the path anyway. I say yes to the calling anyway. I step into the assignment anyway. Because what God has for me is not determined by what people think of me. It is determined by what God has spoken over me. And what God has spoken stands forever. I declare that my purpose is unfolding right now. Not when I get to a certain level. Not when the fear is completely gone. Not when I feel completely healed, or completely whole, or completely ready. Right now, in this moment, in this season, in this version of my life, the purpose is unfolding. The plan is moving. The pieces are being arranged. What looks like stillness is sacred preparation. What looks like waiting is divine positioning. What looks like a quiet season is the deep work of God happening beneath the surface, where my eyes cannot yet see it. I do not need to see it to believe it. I believe it and then I see it. I trust it before it is visible. I praise it before it is manifest. Because faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. And I now live in that faith. I now breathe in that faith. I now move in that faith. I release the comparison. I release the habit of looking at other people's journeys and measuring mine against theirs. I have looked at others who seem to be moving faster, arriving sooner, receiving more, achieving greater. And I have allowed those comparisons to feed the fear that says, you are behind, you are slow, you have somehow missed the window of your own destiny. And I now declare that this comparison is a distraction. My journey is not their journey. My timeline is not their timeline. My purpose is not their purpose. God did not create me to run someone else's race. He created me to run mine. And on my race, on my lane, on my path, there is no competition. There is no one ahead of me that I need to catch. There is no one behind me that I need to stay in front of. There is only the lane that was made for me, the pace that was designed for me, the purpose that was written for me. And on that path, I cannot be late. I cannot be early. I arrive exactly when I am meant to arrive. I step in exactly when it is time. I emerge exactly when the season is right. I trust my timing. I trust my lane. I trust the God who designed them both. I now speak to the fear of the unknown. This has perhaps been the deepest fear of all. Not the fear of a specific thing, but the fear of what I cannot see, cannot predict, cannot control. The fear that says anything could go wrong. The fear that says the future is uncertain, and uncertainty is dangerous. The fear that lives in the space between what is and what is coming. And I stand in that space today and I declare, I am not afraid of the unknown, because the unknown is not unknown to God. What I cannot see, He sees. What I cannot predict, He has already prepared. What I cannot control, He is already governing. The future that feels uncertain to me is perfectly certain in His hands, and His hands are the safest place I know. His hands are where I choose to rest my future, my dreams, my calling, my life. I release the future into those hands. I release the unknown into that wisdom. I release the uncertainty into that sovereignty, and I rest. I am not behind. I need to say that again because fear has told me otherwise more times than I can count. I am not behind. I have not missed my moment. I have not lost my window. I have not arrived too late to the calling that was placed inside of me before I was born. God does not run out of time. God is not constrained by calendars. God is not limited by years or decades, or what society says should have happened by a certain age or stage. God's timing is not human timing. And in God's timing, I am exactly where I need to be. Every year I lived through was preparation. Every season I endured was formation. Every experience, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones, was shaping me into the version of myself that is capable of carrying what God has assigned to me. I did not waste those years. They were not lost. They were invested. They were written into the story. They were part of the plan all along. I declare that I am being prepared, even now. In the quiet, in the unseen, in the ordinary moments of ordinary days, something is being built inside of me. Character is being formed. Depth is being added. Strength is being cultivated. Wisdom is being deposited. Every experience I walk through is adding something to me that will be needed in the next chapter. I do not live any season in vain. I do not walk through any valley without taking something out of it that I will need on the mountain. I am always in the process of becoming. I am always in the hands of the one who is shaping me into the fullness of what he saw when he first imagined me. And I trust that process. I honor that process. I stop rushing that process. I let it do its full and perfect work in me. I now speak peace over my mind. I have let my mind run wild, with scenarios that have not happened and may never happen. I have let fear live in the future, constructing disaster after disaster in a place I have not yet arrived. And today, I call my mind back to the present. I call it back to peace. I call it back to the truth that this moment, right here, right now, is covered. Right now I am safe. Right now I am held. Right now the grace I need is available. Right now the wisdom I need is accessible. Right now the strength I need is present. I do not need to survive the future in my mind. I only need to trust God in the present moment. And in this present moment, all is well. In this present moment, the plan is moving. In this present moment, I am loved. I am guided. I am held by a power that never sleeps, never fails, never runs out. Fear told me that surrender meant weakness. Fear told me that letting go meant giving up. Fear told me that trusting God instead of controlling outcomes was passive, was irresponsible, was dangerous. And today I reject all of that. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is the greatest act of strength I will ever perform. It takes more courage to let go than to hold on. It takes more strength to trust than to control. It takes more faith to say your will, not mine, than to demand my own way. Surrender is not the end of my participation in my own life. It is the beginning of my true partnership with God. When I surrender, I am not stepping back. I am stepping into alignment. I am stepping into the flow of a plan that is so much greater than anything I could engineer on my own. I am releasing the small vision and opening my hands to receive the vast one. I am letting go of the blueprint I drew in fear and receiving the one that was drawn in love before the foundations of the world. I now declare that I walk in divine purpose with divine peace. These two things belong together, purpose and peace. I do not need to be anxious about my calling. I do not need to be frantic about my assignment. I do not need to strive and push and force and manufacture. I walk in it with peace. I move in it with stillness, at my center. I carry the assignment with grace and ease, because it was designed for me. It fits me. It was made to rest on my shoulders. The yoke is easy and the burden is light. Not because the work is without effort, but because I am not carrying it alone. I am carrying it with the one who called me. I am walking it out in partnership with the power that equips me. I do not strain. I do not strive. I move with intention, and I rest in trust, purpose, and peace. They are mine, both of them, fully. I speak to every dream inside of me that fear has tried to bury, every vision that was given to me, and then surrounded by so much doubt and so much time that it began to feel foolish. Every desire that was planted in my heart that I started to explain away, to dismiss, to tell myself it was just my imagination and not divine inspiration. I speak to those dreams now, and I say, you are not dead. You have not been canceled. You have not expired. What God placed in me, He will bring out of me in the right time and in the right way. Dreams do not die when they are delayed. They deepen, they mature. They root themselves more firmly in the soil of character and preparation, and when they finally break through the surface, they carry with them the weight of everything I went through to get here. They carry the testimony, they carry the depth, they carry the beauty of a dream that was tested and remained. I now give those dreams permission to live again. I give them air. I give them faith. I give them the space to grow toward the light of God's perfect timing. I surrender my fear of failure one final time, and this time, I mean it completely. I release the grip of it. I let it fall from my hands. Failure is not the end of my story. Failure is not the verdict over my life. Failure is a teacher. Failure is a part of the process. Failure is what happens when courage meets imperfection and says, I will try again. Every person who has ever walked in great purpose has known failure. Every life that has ever carried a great story has chapters that were painful, chapters that were embarrassing, chapters that required starting over. And those chapters are not the chapters of shame. They are the chapters of formation. They are the chapters that produce the wisdom, the humility, the compassion, and the depth that made the later chapters so full and so rich and so meaningful. I do not run from failure. I learn from it. I rise from it. I carry its lessons forward, and I use them as fuel for the next chapter of the great unfolding God has planned. I am safe in this surrender. That is the word I leave with myself today. Safe. I am safe to let go. I am safe to trust. I am safe to stop controlling and start following. I am safe to dream again. I am safe to step out again. I am safe to believe again that the plan over my life is greater than every fear that has ever spoken against it. Because I am held. I am covered. I am seen. I am known by name. I am loved without condition. I am guided by wisdom that does not fail. I am carried by grace that does not run out. I am backed by a power that has never once been defeated. And that power is for me. That power is working on my behalf. That power wrote my purpose before I was born, and it has been moving toward the full expression of that purpose every single day since. God's plan for my life is greater than my fear, greater than my past, greater than my confusion, greater than my delay, greater than my smallest moment and my deepest valley, greater than the voice that said it's too late, greater than the doubt that said you're not enough, greater than the wound that said you are disqualified, greater than every lie that fear has ever told me about my future. God's plan is greater, and today I choose it. I choose trust over fear. I choose faith over doubt. I choose surrender over control. I choose purpose over paralysis. I choose to believe that what God began in me, He is faithful to complete. I choose to walk forward without all the answers and without all the certainty, but with all of my faith placed in the one who holds both. I walk forward. I walk free. I walk in the fullness of the plan that was written for me before time began. And I give thanks. I give thanks. I give thanks. It is already unfolding. It is already moving. It is already mine. And I receive it now with an open heart, a still mind, and a surrendered spirit. God's plan for my life is greater than my fear, and I believe it, and I live it, and I will never stop declaring it. Amen.